welcome everybody. I'm Peyton, MakerMade. This is Drew, and we're hosting this first sign making workshop for MakerMade, and we are glad to welcome Aaron and Lauren, two sign makers that are part of our network of makers and in the owners group, and they have a different style from each other, and they both work with their beautiful wives. They're both dads, and I'd like to give you guys a chance to introduce yourselves if you don't mind. Aaron, why don't you go first?
All right. My name's Aaron. This is my wife Jill.
Hi.
And
Hi, Jill.
we're based out of Phoenix, Arizona, and I've been in the sign business for about 10 years now, and yeah, I've had the MakerMade since December 2020.
And Aaron, you are a sign maker as a professional as well, right?
Right.
Or a CNC
yeah.
user.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't do the CNC portion at my work. I do the more aluminum fabrication. But
Okay.
so this was totally a whole new stepping stone for me to wrap my head around. So it was super fun to do the CNC aspect part.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Can't wait to hear more.
Lauren, can you introduce yourself?
Hey, sorry, my name's Lauren. My wife, unfortunately, is dealing with a meltdown in our living room right now with our child that just woke up for a nap. So I apologize. You'll see her in a little while. So we actually started our business, just to get a little bit, we started our business back right after COVID kicked off in March of 2020. As kind of we have nothing to do. We were all kind of sent home. And I don't do good at sitting in the house. So we started making some signs and started with the door rounds, some of those you see behind me, and I'll go through those more in detail later and be able to show you up close. And then it just kind of escalated from there. And I ended up getting the M2 back in, actually ordered it back in, I think in November of 2020. And then I ended up getting it in and turned into a project for me and my dad, who's also a woodworker. And then it just kind of kept growing from there. So to me, the M2 didn't really start the business, but it became the catalyst to what it is now, as we continue to expand and kind of grow and make it go from there as I continue my full-time job in the military and then travel around the country and just, have fun at it until I can get out and make it a full-time business.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Wonderful. So let's go over what we're going to do here. I'm letting people in the waiting room. Can you let people in too? Or just can I?
If you trade places with me.
Okay.
Can we trade places?
Let's trade places.
Let's trade places.
For now. And we'll so anyway, what we're going to do is go through some questions that we're going to ask of Lauren and Aaron, and they've seen the questions. And so at the end of their answers, you guys will have the opportunity to ask questions of them. And so the easiest way, as I see people joining, is probably to send them in the chat. So if you can send them in the chat, then we'll make sure that they get asked, and I'll sort of be the moderator to move things along.
Yeah, that sounds great. And one other thing too is to stay on mute, please, as everybody's joining and jumping in here. And then just so as we're talking and things like that, if you have a question or something like that, we'll be opening up for questions. It's going to be very informal, as you all can tell. So yeah, you can hit the raise hand button if you want, or you can just come unmuted. And
we're a little blurry.
Yeah, I think the camera's having trouble like zooming in. I'll play with that while Peyton asks you all questions. And
should we switch back?
Fixed. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you want to switch back? All right, we'll switch them back. All right, so yeah, Peyton's going to be kicking it off. There we go. Oh, it's me. See, I'm the clear. It's clear.
Okay, forgive us. We're sorry. Okay, let's go ahead and start. So again, chat everyone if you have questions, and just say your name and where you're from in the chat. So first question, when did you realize that you could make money selling signs? Let's see.
So me or Lauren?
Well, you've already started, so you go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well,
you said I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just gonna help you get there. Go ahead though.
No, you're good. So LED neon signs are starting to become more popular. And I, started to get more friends and family, because they know I'm a sign maker. They're like, hey, can I get this custom neon? And, I hated saying no. And so I, looked into MakerMade and saw that it could do 4x8. And I was like, that's amazing. So I, started on small things and, worked my way up. And yeah, I just saw a demand. And so I'm trying to fill it now.
Yeah, it was about 2 years ago. We thought we could make some money with it. So that's when we started the business. Also, sorry if you hear, we have
A baby.
our
A little
daughter.
tiny human.
Hi, baby.
So
Yeah,
her-
what's
her
up,
quiet.
tiny human?
If I step out, this is why.
How old is she?
She's 3 months.
Okay, I have a
Yeah.
7-month-old. It goes so fast.
Yeah. So this
But
is
yes,
another
totally.
push to do my own thing because I just felt like I was maxed out at my regular job as a fabricator. And so thought, I'd love to be an entrepreneur and have my own business. And it was a great push, really.
That's great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, Lauren.
So
Hi.
as you can see, my wonderful wife stepped in. So she's back from the chaos. We too have 2 kids. So I feel you there, Aaron. And one
Tell
of
us your
the
wife's name
7-month-olds as well. But with that in mind, I'll step in, and if she has anything, obviously she'll step on me for it. But we actually, like I said, started back in right after COVID kicked off and we got home. And it was actually my wife's idea to start it. So I really consider this her business. I'm just essentially the fabricator for her. And we essentially, she told me like, hey, let's make these door rounds. Like I see them in the neighborhood and there's something, she asked me first, the first thing she really asked me is, hey, can you cut me a circle? And I said, well, sure, I can cut you a circle. That's not that complicated. So we ended up, because I'm a perfectionist, I have a problem with that. I was like, I don't want an incorrect circle. So I want you to take your Cricut and cut pieces of a circle. We'll tape it together and I'm going to make a perfect circle as a template. And so
Actually have the original.
yeah, the original's around here somewhere. And then we made a template circle and then was just using the method of like cutting rough circles and custom routing to the template, right? And at first I was like, oh, this will be a fad. She'll get like a few of them sold for way cheaper than they should be. This isn't going nowhere, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like we'll stick with my 5 or 6 hand tools I have. It'll be okay.
Aaron, you're muted.
What did I do?
Hold up, Lauren. Peyton muted you.
How did I do that?
You hit mute on him.
Where is he?
There we go. I got it. I'm good.
Thank
I'm
you.
good.
I'm sorry, Lauren.
No. What was the last thing I said?
You're talking about making the signs, and you didn't think it was going to go anywhere.
Yeah. So
You thought it was going to be a fad.
no, you're good. And next thing I know, like all these moms are reaching out and they're like, hey, we want to go around for our door. And I'd really kind of had enough because you can see like an example of the door round behind me, and then behind Caleb, she slides to the side a little bit. You'll see like a leaner. And I know you can't see it up close right now.
Did you mute him again?
Well, only because my computer is not functioning.
All right, there we go. Sorry.
Okay.
And next thing you know, I realized like after about my 10th or 15th sheet of plywood that I'd cut into 15 circles a piece, I was like, this is for the birds. Like I'm not doing this every weekend, cutting out sheets and sheets of circles. So I was like, how do I change that? And how do I get away from doing all the work by hand and introduce the MakerMade? But really, when I realized how much she could make and what the options were is when it kind of kicked in. And then we'll get into business further down. But then our first show, not our first show, the first few shows we did, it was hit or miss, to be honest. Like we might make a few $100s, like, and you're like, wow, that's 2 people's worth of effort for a full day, and all you made was $300 to $400. Like, is it really worth it? And that's not counting the hours leading up to the show, right?
Mhm.
Not to mention you're holding product in your hands and you're holding it in your garage or wherever you have it, right? And then we did one December of last year, and that was one that just like kicked us in overdrive. We did a show it was like a 5-hour show, and in 5 hours we cleared close to $1,500.
Wow.
Nice.
Where was
So
this?
that was the moment where like it taught us a lot of lessons because we learned a lot at that show. And since then, Yes, like this year, we're gonna have quite a lull because of a move, like anytime you have to move, it's gonna create a few dead months.
Yeah.
So she slowed down the marketing to keep us from basically killing our customer service, right? With unable to fill orders, but really,
Killing ourselves.
yes, trying to do it flawless.
Committing.
So
Right.
Yeah.
we're gonna have a lull, but overall, like, we see the potential. So it really comes down to going from a small business while I'm in the military to when I get out of the military, being able to turn it into what I truly see as we see as a vision for the future.
Right.
So what kind of show was that you went to?
Oh.
Like what kind of craft show? Was
It was just a like a local craft show. They actually, you'll be surprised if you look it up on Facebook. There's always a craft show. And at first I thought this was going to be focused on craft shows, and we have a lot of comments on a lot of lessons learned about how to do a craft show.
Uh-huh.
Because I'll be honest, our first one was at a petting zoo. The petting zoo saw our product and said, "Hey, come on out." So we literally grabbed our tent that we had on our back porch, like one of those little cheap covered tents, and I built pegboards and just set it up and went after it. And yeah, we didn't make a lot of money, but
No, we learned a lot from that one.
a lot of the procedural processes, the methods to setting things up, realizing afterwards, the mistakes in display. Now, my wife, she worked at dealers before this, so there's
She
a
knows
lot of
how to
marketing as a
merchandise.
Yeah.
right. She knew how to do a lot of
Basic.
that,
Yeah.
but it's a big difference from going to a brick and mortar store where you have a large layout to like, oh, you've got 100 square feet, a 10 by 10 tent to do everything. So there's a lot of shifts, right? And I have a weakness. Like I can see functionality. Like if it's modeling of something in my head or designing it in 3D, I can do that all day long. But when it comes to like, hey, do these two colors go together? Like I'm lost. Like I can't see, like I don't understand what looks pretty. I know what works, but that's kind of like her lane. And so a lot of this is me doing what she tells me to, and then we just execute.
It's the only time you do what I tell you to do.
That is true, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Well, we know who's really in charge. Um,
Yeah, I hear that.
It's the same way in most houses. But that's amazing. So I'd love for you guys to expand further on the craft show circuit sometime, but maybe,
Yeah, we'll loop right around to that.
do you have questions?
That'd be sweet.
No questions. Okay, guys, if you have questions, feel free to pop into the chat. Otherwise, we're just gonna educate you guys.
Keep going down the line. Yeah.
So next, we'll go to Aaron. And Aaron, where do you find ideas for signs? You kind of touched on this about your family asking you for favors, but I don't know, do you have anything to add?
So yeah, people just usually give me an idea of what they want. And I consider myself kind of artistic, so I'll usually put my little spin on, the designs, and they usually 10 out of 10 times love it. And so, and also, find inspiration, on Instagram. I follow hashtag LED neon hashtags. I follow other LED makers just to see what's popular out there. See, also pricing, because that's a big thing with me now is just I don't want to charge too much. Otherwise, people won't buy them, and I don't want to charge too little, because I got to make this worth my time. But yeah.
I don't know about you, Aaron, but like over the time, it has been an argument between me and my wife of like, how much do we charge, right? Because from the marketing side, it's always like, oh, I want them to buy it. But from my side, I'm like, look, I'm spending hours doing this stuff. Like, I want to get paid, even though like our deal was like, this keeps her busy. She enjoys it. And what I'm saying, like, I don't get paid for it. I just hate seeing labor go unpaid because I understand the effort that goes into it. And it's not just in the shop, it's in that design process as well.
But a big thing with that though is one, you have to know your worth. And I think I think that's what the main argument was me feeling like we weren't where I wanted us to be. So I wasn't ready to charge that final price because I was still learning. So I'm not gonna charge you you know, $50 for a circle that, you know, is $10, like whatever. Cause so
Right.
when we first started, that's what we did. All of the neighborhood signs, I think I sold for $20. I think we were right at maybe $5 in labor and cost and everything. So we were like barely making anything, but we didn't really have a name for ourselves. So really making sure that you obviously price your product accordingly, but you can't just start at 50 if your signs don't look like 50. You know, you need to work to that point.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
So we're in a military town, so there's a lot of military wives that do all kinds of things from Scentsy to this. So seeing their signs being 60 and then seeing them at the shows and they're 1/4 inch thick, you know, there's hot glue everywhere, and you're like, I wouldn't spend $60 on that. So again, it's always evaluating your work and making sure that, you know, your work looks like that price. And the last thing, so for instance, I'm sure a lot of women have brought their men to Hobby Lobby. Look how cute this desk is. And the first thing he does is looks at the wood. This is particle board. I could make this for less. You know, I'm not spending, $100 on fake wood.
Yeah.
It's the same concept when it comes to stuff like this. So your customer may not know all the wood types or anything like that, but they're going to know, they can see quality. And so
Right.
that's a big thing too. So like, as our product got better, the price increased. So we started with wood that we sanded for, I swear, 12 hours each because they were just full of everything. And then
Right.
now we're using beautiful birch wood that like we barely have to sand. But because of stepping stones. So as your product gets better, increase that price. Even if you're using wholesalers, like we end up spending less money on the birch wood than we did our wood that we were spending forever on. But
Wow.
because it looked nicer, we could increase the price. If you guys do shows,
Yeah.
pricing is a huge thing. What?
This isn't about this.
Oh, I'm not on the show.
No, this is great
Yeah, no,
information.
this is fantastic.
Fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
So yeah, so that's what we'd love to talk about is like, how do you come about that? I mean, I think that's a really, that's
So
a
the
question. we get a
pricing,
lot.
when it comes to a show, you have to think about what people have in their pocket. So the whole like 1750, like, no, like don't do that. Just like all signs are this, all signs are that. So when it came to our stuff, we were doing, before shows, we were doing, okay, the sign is $10, add flowers, add 5, add name, add 5. Like it was all this completely custom. And then every single one I was having to do a bunch of math on and all this stuff. So what we ended up doing was for the shows, we just said flat 40. A lot of flowers, a little bit of flowers, flat 40. And then we just kind of kept that model and just everything was flat 40. So that would help with the pricing and the quality and stuff like that. So just kind of
That makes a lot of sense for a show too.
Yeah.
So is that by size then? Like flat 40 by size or? flat
So
40
we
by-
always have done, or what can you
That
see?
size.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've always done the 16.5.
So we
round.
started off, I'll explain why we went to this size. So when it goes back to that question, like, where do you find ideas, right? The honest thing was it came from, a lot of it's Etsy, a lot of it's, you see what's out there and you go, can I beat it or can I make it better? Or is it even worth our time? The real reason why we went with 16.5 is if you mock up how much you can get out of one piece of sheet good, 16.5 is your number.
And I liked the way it looked on the door.
If you go up to 18 inches,
Nice,
Right.
yeah.
you don't get as many. And if you go down, you just waste wood. So it turned out 16.5 does the max amount, which is 15 per sheet of good. You can obviously stagger them as you can, kind of make sense, like how you lay out pennies on a table, stack them close together, and you get about 15 with a little bit of scrap wood. And anything over that, you're cutting your what do you call, you end up losing.
But yeah, Pinterest is a great way to get ideas. One thing I would say though is kind of use that as an example. Don't copy it. There's several people who will send me a screenshot. Can you do this? And the first thing I'll always say is I can do my interpretation of that. Because if your sign doesn't look like that exact sign, they're gonna be like, well, this is what I asked.
That's great advice.
So
to set
I
expectations
always
there.
say, I would, let me mock that up for you. This is my interpretation. Prior to the shows, we were doing nothing but customs. They're all last names. They were pretty simple, not really too much fun, pretty, but they were kind of standard. The shows really allowed me to be like, all right, I need 15 signs, like go crazy, Kayla. So I got to just make whatever I thought.
You know,
So
Yeah.
that helped too.
something to think about, like I know a lot of y'all are like, who are we and what have we done? If you really want to see a storyline, just go to our Facebook page. One, if you want free ideas, right? Get an idea of what you can do, because a lot of y'all are capable woodworkers and capable builders that can do your same. I mean, that's why we're all here. We're makers trying to do something new, right?
Lauren, tell them what your Facebook page is so they can find it.
So we'll put it in the chat. I'll add it to the
Okay,
chat.
perfect.
But if you get a chance, just so you can understand what we're saying, you can literally go through her photos on the Facebook page, and they're in chronological order. So you'll see the transition as we tried new things, some things didn't work, and just kept adding new products to the line as we tested them. And like, we're going to show you some products today that, well, here's some examples. We have some products. Hold up that eat sign. So when we first got the M2, we expanded into an example, because we tell customers when they'd come to show, look, our primary business is custom. We turn it the other way.
Oh.
Yeah.
My bad.
But yes, so we tell them like, hey, we can build anything. In fact, go to Hobby Lobby, right? Hobby Lobby has a limited number. You go and you see something you like, we can build that custom for you cheaper and better. We can customize it to your room, right?
So
And that drove the business. But
Right.
the reality was, the funny thing is,
I'd rather go to
you
Hobby
see that,
Lobby.
right? Well, here's the thing. That didn't sell. We've had that for over 6 months. Just didn't sell.
I just didn't
So
sell.
it's
Yeah.
like really it's hit or miss. And then we go to some shows like know your audience kind of thing, like she mentioned. We went to a show, and literally within 50 foot of us was another booth selling door signs.
Round door signs.
They were 1/4 inch. They were made with much cheaper materials across the board. But the reality is
Their
they
price
were
was
selling them for
cheaper.
$25 a piece, and we were selling them for 45, and they didn't care. The signs
Some
they
of
had,
some of them
Yeah.
did. Some came back.
yeah, but
So-
it was a cheaper area, or a less, I guess I shouldn't say cheaper, but
Budget friendly.
Right.
Yeah.
less
Yeah.
lower income
Conservative.
area, and so
Yeah.
it just didn't
That's
sell the
overpriced.
same. So it's kind of like knowing your audience when you're going into a sell. Like, I'm not going to bring all my high end stuff to an area that's not going to be able to afford that stuff. And I don't mean that derogatory. It's just the reality of like, I'm not going to sell hundreds and thousands of dollars on high end furniture to a place that's not looking for that kind of stuff to add to their home.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we started expanding our inventory, making some cheaper items. Just let them know up front, like, hey, this isn't going to last you for years. This may only last you for 6 months, 9 months, a year at
Mhm.
We
most.
can back that up too with the LED neon. I mean, you, like she was
Yeah.
saying, go to Hobby Lobby and find the cheapest LED sign that's going to look like it was slapped together in, a foreign country versus, like Ferrari, right? They don't advertise on TV to people because they're only looking for a specific market of individuals. And like, I think we kind of feel the same way. Like, we want to charge the quality of the sign that we're making, and they're not going to get it cheap. You can get a cheaper sign somewhere else, but like the quality and the precision that we put into it is different than they're going to get just some cookie cutter, pre-made website that's just going to slap it together. So it's
absolutely.
how you sell it to the right individuals that are going to be willing to want to spend the custom pricing on it. So
Do you guys hope that customer will come back? Do you hope, like, even with signs, is that something that you hope to retain customers and they'll come back and ask you for more? Because I would think that especially with neon signs, if you're into it, you're into it.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we're trying to market more towards like organizations, event centers, companies, restaurants,
Mhm.
that way, it's like the Wolf of Wall Street, sell me a pen, right? You have to sell the meaning and why you want the sign. It's not just because it's going to look cool, but it's also going to advertise your business. If someone wants to have, let's eat here and have the name of their logo in their restaurant and people take a photo under that, that's going to be put online, that markets their business. So it's more about like generating revenue for them with the sign than it would just be for having something pretty in their lobby versus selling a sign to like, Debbie in Iowa for her kid's bar mitzvah or whatever, it's selling to the right person. And we want to try to advertise more to companies who then can refer us to other companies and have larger contracts and more. Like we're working with an apartment complex here in Phoenix that's going to have different signage throughout their building. And we're hoping to expand into continuing to do those sort of contracts
Right.
versus individual
'Cause
signs.
individuals can be a little more picky about things. And then you
Right.
spend too much time going back in design. Okay, what do you think of this?
Right.
So how do you advertise to companies like that?
So it's digital marketing, right? We are on Instagram, we have our own website, we use Shopify, and a lot of our business right now is just word of mouth. So a lot of referrals, a lot of people,
It's all been friends and family so far.
so we're in
Mostly.
Phoenix. For those that aren't really familiar with Phoenix, Phoenix is a huge metro. There's a lot of subsidies within Phoenix, and we're in Chandler, and there's not what we're seeing nearly any, if any, sign LED neon sign companies in Chandler. So the folks that have reached out to us here locally are wanting a local sign. So that's a really big sell too, is, well, I want a sign for my restaurant, you know, in downtown Phoenix, but I don't want to order it from someone in Indiana. I want to go local so I can just have it be delivered or picked up or installed. And so that's also how we're kind of getting people to notice us is on Google Maps. They'll type in LED neon sign Phoenix, LED neon sign Chandler, and then we pop up because we're, you know, here local.
So like the Jenkins were talking about their pricing. How do you normally price stuff? Do you do installation on the signs, and like how do you work with your pricing on yours?
So yeah, I do installations. I do shipping. But you know,
it depends on the type of sign that they want. Like how intricate is
exactly.
it? How big of a sign, you know, dimension wise, how many letters, what type of font, if it's script, that'll be a little bit less expensive because it's easier to, you know, solder and wire in the back versus if they want like block letters, that's going to be a little bit more time consuming. If they want single stroke, if they want double stroke, if they want multiple colors, if they want, I don't know if you can see behind us, but there's a Christmas tree that lights up RGB.
Yeah.
So it like lights up different colors. And so I think you can kind of see it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Hard to do over there. So yeah, so like that's gonna obviously cost a little bit more because it's more intricate and more detailed. So if they reach out to us, we'll just ask first, how big are you looking? What are you looking for it to be? How quickly do you want it? You know, and then depending on if they want to pick it up, if they want us to install it, we'll just kind of price it out. But most of our signs start at about $550 and they just go up. And that's like for a 3x2 single stroke, one color.
But mainly what I see now is how much solder time is it going to take me?
Yeah.
And that'll kind of go
and
from
design
there.
time, because that takes time to design it. So
yeah, the design sometimes, you'll spend, 2 to 4 hours, especially because, like Lauren, I'm a perfectionist too. And, I want it to look super nice, especially, if they can possibly get me more work in the future.
Yeah.
And and if you're ever, not that we've ever been late, but if you're ever late on a sign, you want to have a super good product, even if you are.
Yeah.
You don't want a bad product and late.
Something about like the obviously y'all stuff takes a lot of time. When it comes to you guys doing mock-ups for customers, do as simple as a mock-up as possible until you have money. There's been so many times where I've told Lauren had the weekend off. I'm like, all right, here we got this, and this, and he'll make it. And then that customer never replies. And now
goes to you.
I've had that.
So because I'm sure you guys all make all kinds of different stuff. And then if you're definitely using the Maker, you're having to use G-code and this and that in this program. So find something where you can do a really easy 15-minute mock-up so they can see it. If it is a new product, or if you're just doing like names like this, like that's whatever. But make sure you have cash in hand of at least a deposit, because there's been so many times where, but now he's like, did they pay? I'm like, nope, not yet. So we're not even gonna start. We're not even gonna put it into the systems. We're not even gonna nothing. Because if you guys are doing G-code and things like that, that takes a lot of time. Because the cut is, you're just watching it, making sure it does right. All the work that you guys do is prior. So do not cut until you have a deposit, or like they're they're there's been several times that he just looks at me and he's like, they haven't paid yet, and I was like
And I mean, I'm sure
we're getting some really good questions from the chat, so
let's jump in.
Okay,
Okay,
let's jump in and
we already answered a few. So how do you create the file for a neon sign? Kyle Bartels says, I use Easel to create my G codes.
How do you create this?
Yeah, so I use Illustrator.
Okay.
I found you're able to do much more in Illustrator than Easel. I started out with Easel and would just get so frustrated just because, moving the handles and moving points, it's just a little more, I don't know.
There's less options.
Yeah, there's just less options. So I do it all in Illustrator and then save that as an SVG file and then upload it to Easel and then generate the G code from there. And
I appreciate it, Aaron. This is Kyle. Thank you.
hey, what's up, man?
Yes, I actually have Illustrator as well. What I meant was I create the G codes with easel. So yeah, I do have Illustrator and Photoshop and all that. So
Oh, okay.
so like say like their Biggie Small sign behind them there. Like
Scotty B's LEDs. Yeah,
yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome sign.
He's one of my inspirations too.
he's a great. Yeah.
So like that's just like a silhouette, and then what do you do for putting in for the strips of LEDs? Like how do you just make lines or do you trace?
Yeah, just use your line tool and then adjust your thickness
Okay.
accordingly. And then
Quarter inch.
yeah, well, so I put my calipers to them, and it, they vary from like 0.21 to 0.22. And so I try to find a happy medium. I'd rather have it fit than not. I've had too many times where I had to go back and hand route it myself just to open up a groove a little more. So now I do a test cut of a piece of that work just to make sure my width is right. And a big thing that helps out with Illustrator, so you'll get your line drawn up. Then when you're ready to have it cut, outline your stroke. Go to I think it's object and then outline stroke. That way it creates lines outside of it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
So I use Inkscape. Like I used to use Illustrator when I used to have copies of it, but as the price went on and I was trying to save money, if you haven't tried it, you can also get Carbide Create. So it really depends on the type of file that I'm cutting, whether I'm doing a V-carve or anything along those lines. Some things to note the way I do it, because I've done engravings like that, and I'm not heavy into LEDs. Me and Aaron was talking about that earlier. But you can have two types of SVGs when you import them. You can have a stroke or a path. And so when you do those lines and when you set up that cut, so if you're familiar with easel, you can either cut on the line, inside the line, or outside the line. So if you just draw those lines and you tell it to cut on the line and you have a 1/4 inch bit, guess what's going to fit? Those lines are going to fit within that line, and you can just glue them in or however you attach them. So all you need is the line at that point. It doesn't necessarily need to have a specific thickness as long as your bit matches up to the size of that strip.
So yeah, so I did that in the beginning, and I was, because I was trying to find a bit that was actually this size of this, because a 1/4 inch is just a little too big. Right. But yeah, I was having issues of, it just kind of looking sloppy when it gets a little too wide. So that's when, I had to shrink it down a little bit to make, letters look a little more tight. And
I did
and
find,
also
I don't know if you've been to Tools Today, but that Amana Tools does make some specific size bits to fit that. I don't know if you've been on their website. You can find them there.
Yeah,
Definitely. Jump in, ask me a question.
Hey, Lauren, can you answer a question about the sign, the hello sign in the background of your workshop? What kind of adhesive do you use?
Let me talk for it. Which adhesive for the topper on it, the bow and such, or is it specifically something?
She just said it's adhesive. I'm guessing, I don't know. Do you use an adhesive at all?
So this right here is permanent vinyl.
Okay.
And then
I thought that was on top of
I
it.
spray it with poly because we live in Savannah where the weather is who knows what and nasty and muggy. So I spray it pretty good with polyurethane to keep it coated. And then the topper is Gorilla glued and stapled down. That sucker ain't going nowhere. Just don't lift up the bow because it's hideous under there.
So say for instance, if you would have cut the words out, hello, instead of doing the vinyl, then what would you? Because I'm more into like developing like the 3D looking signs. And I'm always curious.
So this one here.
Yeah, I can kind of see it.
Hold on. So another thing that we're really known for is our crib names.
Yeah.
A military town, so everyone's popping out babies.
Right.
So this is one of our famous crib signs. It is 3D. That one is my daughter's. It's just the one we bring to shows. We've done some with bears on it, flat or whatever, but we use 1/2 inch MDF. We don't paint the back of it so it sticks better. And then we super glue it, and then why are we blurry? We super glue. Well, hello, other child. Hi. You
Oh,
ate
so
your
it's just
lunch.
regular super glue? Okay,
Oh, we
I
use
didn't know if it had to
super
be
glue and then we use
something
the nail gun.
fancy.
And then we use the nail gun, so really make sure, because if it's going over a crib, last thing I want is somebody calling me because their kid got hit in the head with their fate or their name. But yeah, so the 3D ones, like I said, depending on what your surface is, they make
Mhm.
all different kinds of nails for the nail gun. So just make sure that it goes through both of them, so it is nice and secure.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we
Thank you.
found luck in just regular super glue, because if we
Okay.
tried hot glue, and then he yelled at me because the hot glue wasn't flat and it bubbles up, so then you don't have
Yeah.
that perfect seal. So then that was a trial and error, and I had to rip that up and do it the way my husband told me to do it in the first place.
Yeah, because I was thinking maybe E6000 or something, but I wasn't sure. E6000 is my
I
go-to
use
for
E6000
everything.
Any
always.
Is this
glue, I would
regular?
just 100%
Yeah, it's my go-to for everything.
that you
So
nailed it down.
okay.
Thank you, Cassandra. That's a great question. I have a question for Erin now. Erin, can you speak to the LED lighting / vendor / types and controllers for LEDs?
I follow a couple of pages on Facebook, like neon LED owner pages. And there's a bunch of, Chinese suppliers that are on there that, have great quality and have it for literally like a third of the price of what you would pay for it here. So say like, I don't know, say about, I think a meter, I get a meter here for about $15 and a meter over there is about $2.50. So it really, it's
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Oh,
Okay,
okay,
it just
sorry.
says unmute to start speaking all of a sudden on our
Well,
screen.
no, because you have 2 accounts going, right? I just made you, I made you
Oh,
a
you made
pin
us big.
so that everyone can see you.
But anyways, yeah, I mean, it's 12-volt system. You can get, I order a lot of controllers on Amazon, or RGB controllers on Amazon, dimmers on Amazon, power supplies. Thank God for Jeffrey Bezos, especially,
Plug for Amazon.
in this, especially because, when COVID happened, it seems like everyone moved to Amazon, and
Yeah.
Amazon blew up.
it did. So yeah, and there's different kinds of LED neon. There's kinds that you can cut every 1 inch, and then there's kind you can cut every 1/2 inch. I love this stuff. I don't know if you can see it in the light, but there's a little strip on here, and it has little markings where you can cut it. And the 1/2 inch is so awesome, especially for when you have small letters, you have tight areas, because sometimes you'll have, with the 1 inch, you'll have a dead spot where you need to make a termination. And I hate seeing that, just my eyes go to them. So the fact that you're able to have it lit up all throughout the stroke, that's substantial to me.
Awesome.
But like, a lot of people don't really know that. They're not really looking for that. I don't know. It's it makes
It's a science curse.
yeah,
Sign builder's curse.
it's a big deal to me.
Aw. Thank you, Erin. Lauren, I have another question for you. Let me come back and highlight you. Okay, so where is this?
Yeah, we got a lot of good questions in here, so we're gonna get to as many as we can.
For the Jenkins, are the hello, welcome, and IAKWE signs, are those inlays or painted, and how are they made?
That is a loaded question because we've done all of those. It really depends on what the design is. Unfortunately, like we can't even show you a lot of them because we have a local business that we work with that holds on to a lot of them. Like they keep them in their store, and then when we come to shows and stuff, we'll bring them out. But it's all a mix. Like for one of them example, we've made templates of like plaid so that we can paint everything plaid before we actually do the overlay with a cricket or something like that. But it really just depends, and everything comes down to the price point for us. We keep a stockage of a couple of sheets of all the way from 1/4 inch MDF, which if people don't know, it's actually 0.22, stop, all the way up to 3/4 inch birch plywood. And we have a variations of plywood depending on how much you want to spend. So we have real Baltic birch all the way down to, you know, the not so quality home goods, depending on the money you're willing to spend. So everything's driven. And we even have, oh, it's over there. We've even cut things out of foam board. If you just don't have the money for it, we try to fit it within your budget and try to be fair. It just doesn't, you know, it's kind of flex, but yes, the higher the quality, it just goes up in price, and we've done it a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Lauren, what is the order of operation when it comes to painting signs?
These are some really lessons learned. So everything depends upon the order. So, and specifically like how they want it done. For example, oh, give me 1 second. I'll show you. Can you go give me that crest that's white, blue and white?
It's right next to you.
Surrender for a second.
It's literally right here.
Oh, here we go. I'll show you an example.
Miss Jenkins? No.
So this is what I'm doing for an American flag right now, right? So it's one for one of the guys I work with. As you can see, it's V carved. It's kind of hard to see it on the camera, but it's V carved. So when you're doing something like this, the big thing to note is you actually want to, before you do anything, mark up your area and paint all of the blue. Then I lay down a coat of Aura mask, or lay down an Aura mask. Then I do the V carve. Then I spray the white or paint the white, and then I peel it off and do any minor fixes from there. That's one thing. Other times it's just layers and using tape to cut up to seal off your area. There's also additions like certain wood, you need to seal it after you cut it. So you'll want to actually make the cut and then do sealant in these areas that are now exposed. There's a whole bunch of processes to it, and it really depends on what you're doing. That's why I say it's a loaded question. There's so many steps. It really comes down to start with your largest area of paint. So if it's like for this, right, the largest area is the blue. Start there and then work to your smallest area. Because going into the smallest area and then working your way out is twice as painful, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, you can see. I learned the hard way with that. So I tried, you know, with my carve, trying to make her little birthday.
I love that.
Yeah.
But you can see
It
close.
bled over.
It
Yeah.
bled into it. So I should have lacquered it first
Yep.
before I painted it. But I did it again. It turned out good. But this was,
Aw.
Yeah.
I
This
wanted
is
something exactly like that when my son was born, and I couldn't figure it out. So that's where it is. I had to should have
gotta
gotten
lacquer it
Aaron to
first.
make it.
yeah.
It is one of those things, like there's little tricks that they show you. And I haven't tried this, but that guy showed that you can actually mix glue and water and make really running glue. And you can actually seal that way if you don't have it. I haven't tested it. They showed it on foam and it worked great. So that's like one of the things. Next time we get a foam order, I found that online the other day. I'm gonna give it a shot. But yes, sometimes I will tell you this. I am super cheap, and that's why I don't use Illustrator. I use Inkscape. I use 90% free software because I'm super cheap. And the longer I'm in a business and running a business, time is money, whether your customers realize it or not. And if you don't spend the money on things like grain sealer, or you don't just take a few extra minutes, it takes hours on the back end.
Yep.
If that, I know Drew, you know this because I come to like the Thursday meetings. Like I like to see how fast I can cut things.
Oh yeah, I was experimenting.
Yeah, if I try to go too fast, then there's errors, and then I end up spending hours fixing those errors when I could just let it do it at the appropriate amount of time up front, not rush it, and save myself lots of time. So yeah, well, it's fun to experiment. I've paid the price a couple of times.
Okay.
Sorry, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah,
What,
that's great.
I was gonna say, what size bit do you mainly use, or does it vary per project?
So that depends on whether I'm using, because I mean, since I've had the M2 for a little over a year, and now I have a 4x4 CNC for more intricate stuff. It depends on what I'm doing. So for the most part, the the M2, which, I mean, I've said it 1,000 times, it's a phenomenal starting machine. It teaches you a lot of things and it works really well. I almost always use it, and I can put it in the chat if I need to. I go on Amazon and buy bits in bulk for up to 10 to 15 bits at a time for $20. They're just little 1/8" bits, and they work great because guess what? The M2 peaks out, whether you realize it or not, at 40 inches per minute, unless you force it outside those parameters. And the motors that come with the M2, they only, if you go beyond those parameters, they start skipping steps. So if you get into the math of it, the bits that cost $1.50 a piece, $2.50 a piece, run just fine. And I'm still, my last order was midway through the last year, and I'm still got several left to go.
Nice.
So yeah, I can post it in there and we'll follow up at the end because I'll show you. They're just straight flute and spiral flute down cut bits. They work like a champ. Don't get me wrong, I only have like a few left out of my last order of 10 and 10, but I only spent $20 for each order. So
It's not too bad. Yeah, I used to use the 1/8" single flute upcut bits, and noticed it would just load down, you know, a little too quick. They dull a little fast. So I stepped it up to 3/16 and made some substantial difference. Well, the cut faster, you know, it just gets the chips out of the way in time for the next pass. And it's and another thing, I don't know, I'm sure we'll talk about this again in another question, but if you're thinking about getting the 1 horsepower one for the M2, just, you know, step up to the bigger one.
Get the big one.
Spend the money, get the bigger one. Because yeah, once I stepped up to the bigger Bosch, the 16, 17 EVS, something like that, it was just, not only does it add a little more weight to make it a little more stable, but that thing just powers through anything I put through it, if you got a sharp cutter. So yeah, because at one point I was able to get, yeah, about 40 inches per minute, but then, like you said, as you go along, it doesn't like going in a certain direction at that speed. So I had to slow it down. And yeah, I'm pretty comfortable at 20 inches per minute now. It's pretty decent.
So yeah, about that and like the size of the cuts. Have you guys ever utilized like the entire 4x8 sheet to cut something really big, or do you normally cut a lot of smaller things? And you know, and how long does it normally take? Like, what are those determinations? Like, am I going to cut this entire sheet or smaller things on here? And like, how does time factor into that?
So for me, I'm pretty sure like my wasteboard has a little bit of a bow in it. So if I try to go from end to end, I have maybe about a 1/4 inch of where it rides up in the middle. So I got about like a, I don't know, 3x6 sweet spot right in the middle that cuts amazing. But if I go anywhere below that, when the chain starts to get long, it starts to act up on me a little bit. So I pretty much, if I get a sheet, I'll try to put my cut right in the middle. But I think it's more calibration. I think I need to straighten my wasteboard out a little bit, and I can get it more dialed in. And
How long does it normally take to cut something like that? That's like a 3 foot by 6 foot sign.
So it just depends on the intricacy of it. But if I got a fresh cutter on there, it'd probably take about an hour. But the thing is so, you know, it tells you that the simulated time, how much it's going to take, and that's pretty accurate. But then there's me, who I like to do a cleanup pass on everything, because I don't know if you ever have this where, because I do an 1/8 inch pass at a time in 3/8. So every now and then you'll start to get steps where it didn't really line up exactly, which is okay. A lot of people aren't really looking out for that. But for me in the sign business, I want a perfect edge. So I'll go back, offset it like 0.15 and do a whole cleanup pass around the whole thing and get a pretty nice edge with that.
So then, I'm sorry, go ahead, Aaron. I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
No, sorry. I always do this. I never answered the question. So,
Oh, you answered it. Yeah, that's great.
but
We'll say about an hour or two
An hour.
on average. to
Yeah.
cut.
but then yeah, the cleanup pass always took like another half hour, making sure
Oh.
everything's good.
That saves you, how many hours does that half hour cleanup pass save you in post-processing?
So much. And what I've been doing also lately is I'll use double-sided tape. I'll use double-sided tape. And if I have a smaller sign, I'll tape the back of it. Because sometimes, when it leaves the tabs, it kind of leaves it all throughout it on that spot. And even if you use a flush trim router, you'll still see where it was. So lately, I've just been doing a full depth pass all around and then having that tape hold it. And I've been getting pretty good results with that.
So I actually invested in some very expensive flush trim router bits because sometimes it happens. You get those lines, or I mean, when you're working with sheet goods, as you cut, especially if you're with any wood grain, I mean, it's going to have a little bit of flex or moisture change and those kind of things. So I invested in some pretty expensive flush trim bits. And that cleanup pass that I used to do, I actually go ahead and cut it off and then do back to back, like, so one going one way, like basically taking the tabs off and then flipping it over and cutting it the other side. And it takes only a couple of minutes to do those. And it saved me that cleanup pass. It's just done by hand.
Yeah.
The reason why I started to do it by hand was when I was starting to batch out hundreds of items at Christmas time. What I found is I didn't have time to let the machine do the work because the machine could be working on the next piece while I'm cleaning up the previous piece. And so batching items, it turned out better that way because you got to think as it cuts down, there's either the top or the bottom is going to be wider than the other side, right? Because it's never going to be the middle, because if it's, you know what I'm saying? And so I would do one side, flip it over real quick, flush trim the other side, and it was almost every time perfect. And then of course, if I had a couple of times where it was just weirdness, then it went back to the spindle sander and did a little work there, but that was very rare. For the most part, just run it through quickly twice with a flush trim bit.
Right on. And yeah, with my old 1 horsepower one, I ended up so I made me a little jig.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you
Router
can see
cable.
for my little router cable. And then I got this obnoxiously big shut off
Oh, I
button.
love it.
But
What does it do?
I got it for the M2, but I just didn't like how big it was, so I got a little smaller one. I
You
threw it on
need
here.
this too. I think this is cute.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
Dude.
so Peyton had a really good question there. How do you integrate that? Like, how do you integrate that little router table into your full designs?
How do I integrate it? Oh,
Yeah,
so
like,
that's
do you post process on that? Like, do you cut something out of the M2 and then use that little table for it?
yeah. I cut all the little tabs off of that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll just do, and then areas that need a little cleanup. Sometimes, if it doesn't cut it through all the way, and sometimes you have a little lip, it'll be nice to just clean that off with it too.
Move it down.
We have it posted in one of our videos on Instagram, the pink rose reel. I think I shared 2-3 days ago. There's a video of us like using it if you care to see it in action.
Instagram handle into the chat.
Yeah, can you drop your handle in the chat so people can
Sure.
follow
It's all lit up neon. That's all. But yeah.
you? And we got a couple really good questions here.
Okay, let's, Aaron, what are the LED neon signs 2D, meaning that you're cutting 2 pieces? Can you explain a little more about what goes into cutting the LED neon signs? I think
Like the process.
The process, I mean,
I think
well,
maybe
they
you don't
Yeah,
actually
are they
cut the
separate
neon.
parts?
Yeah.
I think is what they're asking.
Yeah,
Well, there's like the clear, there's the backer, the
Okay.
acrylic backer
Perfect.
is clear, or you can do any color. You can do black, red, whatever. And then there's the LED neon within that, so it sticks out. I don't know if we can turn it like sideways.
view.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell.
so yeah.
Can you turn it off? Maybe you can see it better if it's off.
Okay.
I mean, we saw it pretty well. It looks really good. I
All
mean,
y'all do is
I'd love
cut
to
a
see
groove
There we go. We got it.
to hold it, right? Y'all just cut a groove deep enough to hold the lighting.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
I see it better.
Yeah. So it's like, what is that 3D, 2D? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, I guess.
So you're
3D relief.
cutting the acrylic part.
Yeah,
Right.
and then cutting the groove for the LEDs.
And a groove for the LEDs. Okay.
Exactly. That's all it is containing it.
Yeah,
And-
where do you get your acrylic from?
Yeah.
That's a good question right there. Oh.
Yeah, this is the acrylic, and then this actually has a black backer.
Hmm.
So yeah,
this
that's
is
black acrylic.
And you just do it
Okay.
black, but this is what the machine cuts, and then
And you
just-
you
The
peel that
LED
off and then you add your lights.
and puts the LED neon in it. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
I feel like I did not know that either.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just contains it. There's all kinds of ways to do this. I've seen people just use like an 1/8 inch piece of acrylic and then use glue to hold the shape of it. I think that's a little hokey and it doesn't last as long.
Yeah.
This, at least you know it's contained and won't go anywhere. It's pretty rigid.
Do you use a different bit for acrylic than you would for wood?
Yeah, or so mainly for acrylic, you want to use a single flute upcut. Get the material out of the way. You want it to go up, not down. So,
Okay.
and also, even for birch ply, I'll use my little single flute, and it works great. And
Come forward more.
can I go forward more?
Sorry, we're like in our garage and it's dark.
Sorry.
It's okay.
You're well lit with your lights behind you.
You
so
are, you're okay.
You're
Are
all
we
a little lit up.
We're all lit up.
Glowing, just glowing.
I have a question for both of you guys. Have you calculated an hourly rate for yourselves so you know you'll be profitable, or is that still
Yeah.
learning? And how did that come about?
Yeah, like how's labor fit in?
For now, yeah, I know I'm probably losing a little money, but also, because I take a little more time in the beginning to make it look nice.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I try to base it off, try to be compatible, with the sign industry standard out there. And but because I'm, still new at it, I kind of still have to charge a little less, which is okay. But I don't know.
We're working
what
on
would you
it.
say? Yeah. I'd like to say I want to get it to like $100 an hour,
For
but
labor.
which is pretty standard, even with mechanics, just to make things worth your while.
And it's pretty close to that if we're doing a
Yeah,
standard sign.
it's pretty decent.
Mhm.
We've lately started, sometimes we start at like 500, just for some basic ones.
Yeah.
And then for friends and family, we'll always give a break, but
Yeah. Lauren, what about you guys?
So when we first started, I basically put together a spreadsheet, a budget. I did I did quite a bit of research on like how other people worked it out. Because it comes down to demand, right? If it's not in a demand, then you got to be willing to take a hit to your labor to cover it. But essentially we worked it out and rounded. You always want to round up, right? So actually calculated the wood down to the square inch, right? How much it cost us per sign. And we obviously, if we're cutting on a name, we just basically mark off the area as a square, and then that's the total square inch of the material. So if the customer asks, we can tell them down to the square inch, like, hey, your sign costs this much, we added this much for paint. Where it actually, yeah, and it depends if it's a color we already have or it's a general, we'll give them a reduce. But if they want a very specific, especially like sports memorabilia, well, we fully understand we're not licensed and we don't have that kind of stuff if it's a one-off sale. But a lot of that has very specific colors to use, and if they want those colors, we'll go pick them up. They just have to absorb that cost. And then at the end, the method that we're still in right now is we take that item and run a comparative cost analysis on between Etsy and Pinterest and things like that. What is it looking like in the market? And then can we match it, or, is it worth it? Those kind of things. So it's hit or miss on whether we're sticking closer to the $25 to $50 an hour. Right now, obviously, as we step up and we get into more professional grade signs and not just residential signs, that value can go up. But it really just comes down to like beating the market and being fair with it. We have had people that are like, oh, this is what we want and it's cheap, and I just have to tell them like, look, I'm not going to put my name on something that's not that quality because it's going to affect the rest of my product, and I just have to let
And you
them
can
know.
sometimes offer different things to make it price efficient, but that doesn't cut into your time. So for instance, our names here, we can do an MDF, quarter inch, half inch. So we can find your price point, but your hour doesn't change. So just because that's a different material doesn't mean that we've done less work. Just
Right.
means the material itself was cheaper. When it does come to things that are kind of standard, I found it to be good practice to make a, well, again, also kind of depends on your market, but for us, I have a graphic that I'm able to shoot quickly to people when it comes to these. And we've got multiple sizes. So you order it just like you're to order a pizza. You know, I want a large, you know, Everlay, and I want it painted. So I can tell from the large, it's this size by this size. And of course, all mains are different. So we just kind of do the area and kind of make it fit, because David is going to fit different than, you know, long main. So that's already got all of how much we want to charge ourselves already inputted into the graphic. So I just shoot it to the customer. They can see it's a menu option at that point. And then if we want to tweak things, add this, add that, that's obviously add-ins. But when it comes to just paying yourself, you know, that needs to always stay, because again, no matter what material you're using, what you're doing is still the same.
Mhm. Okay, that's good advice. So,
Absolutely.
question for you guys, the Jenkins. Is the Everly sign behind you cut with the M2? I'm gonna guess yes. And then if
Yes.
so, what bit was used for the tight areas?
So that one, it goes back to those 1/8" bit. And I can, like I said, if I need to go back in Amazon and show you, there's a couple of things that I recommend in my finishing process, right? Because the M2, its real strengths are doing curves. It does curves very well. I never cut my straight edges with an M2. So like he has a router table, like a small mini router table. Me, I actually made a drop in from my table saw. So I dropped my router into the table saw and used the table saw as the ultimate table. So I have a very specialized, like I've got it down to an art as like bounce from this to this to this in my process. But
I'm
with
gonna
that in
make a
mind,
quick add in. So with that, before this ever even, so I find the font, I do everything on Cricut because that's the process. Like it's like Android or iPhone, you're either one or the other. I do everything on Cricut and then I translate, and then he translates it to whatever you guys use. So with that being said, this did not look like this in Cricut. He did so these little tight spots, he made it where it would cut. So I'm pretty sure in the original font that was not going to happen with the M2. He made it be where he tweaked the points so it works. And of course, again, another fun art we always get into is people really like the skinny fonts, but when you come out with something nice and long in the skinny font, that's not very sturdy. So again, he's tweaking the font. He's adding the path. Is that the
so
right word?
the issue is like a customer knows what they envision what they want, right? And you want to tell the customer they're always right, but that's not always the truth. Because if I give them a sign in the original font, because we'll tell them if you see a font you like, let us know. But this font, like right here at the E, or that's actually the V, I'm reading it backwards, between the V, right? That was less than 1/4 inch. It was about an 1/8 inch. And I'm like, I'm going to give you, they just wanted the name. The chance of that surviving the car ride home is low.
I mean, even this eye here, I mean, this is attached.
Right. So it's always
all in the system
manipulating
before we
it.
even put it into the M2, that he does a lot of work. So so we can use certain bits. So it does make things like that. So it's all in the setup of it.
With that in mind, getting back to the original question. So you can see down here in the curves and a lot of the tight points that you have, there's 2 ways to finish it up, because it's going to cut well. But the interesting thing, and I'm sure Aaron has seen this, it doesn't always perfect match fit every pass, especially into those points. So I actually use it's called a burr bit is one method I use. So you can buy it at Home Depot or Lowe's. It usually goes into a Dremel 1/8 inch bit, and it does perfect because it doesn't have giant teeth on it. It's meant for metal, and it takes little tiny shavings, and it's really good for, you can have a little human error and it won't cost you a fortune because a bit takes off from you. You can put it in your little palm router. You can get in there and you can get those tight points. The other thing is, if you're running an 1/8 inch bit, so you want those real crisp corners, as you know, the smallest router bit I have found with a bearing on it, flush trim to get cleaned up, is what is it? 3/16 bearing. So it's still a tiny bearing, but guess what? Still over the size of 1/8 of an inch. But what you can get is you can get a non-bearing flush trim 1/8 inch bit, and it will clean it up. You just got to do one side, let it run right along the top of that edge, and then turn it over and do the other side. You just got to flip it over. And that's exactly what I did here. And I mean, I can show you up close, just show you how clean it really looks. Like there's very little,
yeah.
it's very clean. And the honest cleanup on this one was probably 10 minutes or less. That's not like, I'm not like lying about that. It's just, I'm very particular because when I realized like, hey, my wife's going to have me batching this stuff out when I get home at night from work and on the weekends, I was like, I've got to get faster at it. And I can't be wasting hours doing cleanup. But it's just my method. You know, it doesn't always work for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Right
totally
on.
get.
Yeah. And that's a great point too. It's always going to be, find the method that works for you. And that's a trial and error thing. I'm sure it's finding out what the capabilities of it and how small it can cut and what's going to survive, like you said, survive the car ride home.
And if y'all want, I don't know, do you think I should just post, because I have them all saved in my cart, some of the stuff I've purchased. If you think it's something I should post in the chat, or we can add later.
I think
Because
you
it's
can
all
add it in
nice
the chat
instead
if
of
you want to.
Amazon.
Absolutely put stuff in the
purchase.
chat.
Um,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Drop those in the chat so everybody can see the bits that you're talking about.
While you're doing that, Aaron, I have a question for you. Do you have any advice for cutting plastics and acrylics? Like router bits and speed, using default easel cut settings or slowing down PM speed?
I'd say it's good to start out with the settings it recommends with the 20 inches per minute. I wouldn't do I think it automatically puts it to like 0.2 or something to cut, or for depth of, just play with it. I always do it on a scrap piece, in the beginning, just seeing what feed rates work the best. And also, if I know I have a cutter getting a little dull, I'll slow the speed down a little bit just to help it out. But you kind of want to know what to look for when it gets too dull, is you'll start to see, frosting. You'll start to see, here, I'll show you. Where's the others? But anyways, you can see here. See, look at, I don't know if you can see that cut.
Yeah. Like it's kind of opaque.
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
opaque. Yeah, you should be able to kind of see, almost see through it. And so you can see on the CC sign how much cleaner this is.
Oh, it's clear. Yeah.
Much more clean than that. So, and other advice, yeah,
Be patient.
yeah, patience, man. I spent a lot of hours.
So what do
You buy your acrylic.
what do you do when it starts to do that? When it when you see that it's starting to dull, do you pause it right then, or do you just cross your fingers and like, come on, baby, we're so close, or do you like pause it right then and switch your bits out? Like, what's your process?
No, yeah, I'll usually wait for it to get to a good point in the cut, and when it's going to another letter, I'll pause it and change it out. But then sometimes, you got to be good at guessing where that bit was again, because sometimes you could be too shallow, too deep, and then you got to do another pass to go all the way through. Yeah, it's just, play with it. I highly suggest, a vacuum, definitely.
Dust collection.
And definitely be wearing a respirator. You don't want to be breathing in particles of cast acrylic.
It's like a nail
Yeah,
salon.
we definitely
around
recommend that.
my house. There's just little pieces of acrylic everywhere.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Where do you guys find your acrylic?
So I mean, here in Phoenix, being such a big hub, that's the beauty of it. There's a couple of suppliers, but I mainly use Port Plastics. And there's another one. I'll put it in the chats, the other supplier.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But,
Yeah. And then for the Jenkins, where do y'all normally get your materials? You mentioned those early on in the workshop.
So one of that's a really loaded question too, because we've traveled quite the journey
We
where we
go
are now.
everywhere.
So we started off, of course, in the box store, right? Home Depot, Lowe's, lumber yards. But as y'all know, supply chain management, right? And then things just shot through the roof.
Mhm.
Then we ended up working with a local business, and we found they basically, and I think this is a great idea. I don't know if it's something MakerMade could get onto. I don't know why I never brought this up to you, Drew. They basically started a business collective, right? Because what ends up happening in most is like we went to you have a bulk store, and we literally went to the store, met with the guy, and they were selling products like furniture grade, plywood, lumber, that kind of stuff, but at bulk price. So they were, when I met the guy, you know, I'm trying to build a relationship, and I'm like, the prices of material is shooting through the roof. What can we do? And he's like, look, I don't sell anything under a truckload. Like, I'll be nice and sell you a pallet. But we spent some time with him, let him know, hey, what we're trying to do. Ended up shaking hands, and he said, we can cut you a deal. You just give us the order. Try not to order small amounts. So while everybody else was spending $60 to $70 to $80 a sheet, we were still spending $32 a sheet for 3/4 inch plywood.
We also
That's
went-
awesome.
We were also
Right.
able
That's a
to-
lifesaver.
to a store in the next town. So we're actually vendors. So we were actually able to use their wholesale because
Yeah.
we were vendors. So we don't make too much money in that store. I mean, we do okay, but the fact that we can use their wholesale for their wood almost made the deal for us. Because they take about 30% of what we make. Which again, it's okay. But we were able to get our name out more. But again, it's all about that wholesale wood.
And that's kind of a recommendation. Just when I say business collective, right? Because they wasn't the only one. Basically, it was a store that they were working on a vendor deal. So we were like, look, if we're going to be a vendor in your store just to help our stocks that's not going away in the events that we go to, y'all have the material coming in anyway. So if you are trying to start a business, check with your other local businesses, and more than likely in one way or another, you're probably using similar materials. And if you can order together in bulk, you can cut it down, or find a business that's already ordering in bulk. Tell them, look, you'll pay 10% over there, 10 or 15% over their ordering costs. So you're giving money back to them. They just add a few sheets to their order, you know, as you get started. The other thing is we've really jumped into the cutting board world. And honestly, like, cutting boards take time. They really do, especially glue ups and all those things.
Mhm.
So if you haven't done it yet, there is a cheat. Find yourself a salvage store. There's tons of them around there, because guess what happens to countertops that don't meet the snuff, especially wooden ones? They get into salvage warehouses. You find yourself one and buy the butcher block countertops, and just, you can cut them out. So they sell them by 3 foot by 8 foot, and just cut them down into cutting boards. I promise you, your
Awesome.
customer will never know the difference. You didn't piece them together. And then you can take them and engrave them and do whatever you want to, cut the handles out. I don't have one here, but the first one we did was, we did for Kayla's father, my father-in-law, and ended up, you'll see it in there if you go to the Facebook page. I ain't gonna share it right now, but anyway, you'll see it in the Facebook page, but it's a giant 25-inch by 36-inch cutting board to fit his island, custom fit the island. And
Nice.
cutting boards, man, you can make some money, because a single cutting board with a little bit of engraving, almost no work, starts out at $75, $85, $100, and you're way undercutting your competitors, because on Etsy they're going for $200 a
And
piece for the
they're
same
just
cost.
walnut. They're not actual butcher. So again, depending
Yeah.
again what everyone's making with their machines. Another way to get your product out there and to make a lot of it is to get with realtors. Realtors are given so
Yeah.
much, they're, I guess, allotted so much money to do closing gifts. The guy who's actually selling our house, this is how we met, is we make their closing gifts. They literally give me a list of names and just say, make them something. Here's my budget. Just I'll be there Friday. I
That's
mean,
awesome. Yeah.
So
I mean, she just sends me 10, 15 names. And I'm like, okay, here we go.
So
And I
she
just
hits
crank them out.
she hits on a good point. When it comes to customers, I call it building your Ferris wheel of customers, right? You're going to have your customers that get on and get off the Ferris wheel, and then you're done, right? They're just not going to come back. But you're going to have those customers, just finding those customers to get on that wheel and want to ride it over and over and over again. And they're your repeat customers. So like, if you're starting a business and you want to find places to sell those signs, especially custom ones, get in touch with a real estate agent. And the market's crazy. So you think they're selling a house probably at least once or twice a week, especially a larger business. And if they have several realtors, they're probably selling one every day. And guess what? Signs make a great closing gift.
Personalized,
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah, so-
They were having a problem because they were just kind of shopping around. And then one customer got mad because they didn't get what the other customer got, which is just a ridiculous thing. Closing gift. But that's why they like us, because everyone's getting the same present, the same price. Like they know what they're getting. And so it's, if you don't have a vendor store you can get into, again, also depending on what you're making, you know, making something personalized and engraved, like that's a great gift.
Absolutely. Yeah. So on that, we got a really good question about thickness of material. So about the cutting blocks and the butcher blocks. And then for y'all too, Aaron, about just, you know, you're gonna make a restaurant sign. What's the thickest material that you've cut on the M2? Like, you ever go beyond 3/4 of an inch or beyond an inch on it?
For me, no, I've only done 1/2 inch acrylic. You know, you don't want it to be too heavy, you know, especially once it starts to get that big. So what I found is I actually, in order to lighten it, I went to 3/8, you know, 0.375, and you know, only route down to about 0.28. And I've had pretty good luck with that. It's pretty rigid still. You know, doesn't want to bend or break. That's what this is, 3/8 here.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Awesome.
Did I answer the question?
Yeah, for sure. Then yeah, Lauren, do you guys cut, when you're cutting those butcher blocks, like how thick have you gone?
She's actually going out. The first time we purchased from the salvage store, you can see 2 of them here.
Oh,
Nice,
that's
yeah.
they're heavy.
These are blanks right now, so they're not anything right now. So this is actually rubber wood that we've stained. And as you can see, that's
It is that thick.
it's 6/4 wood or 1.5 inches.
Yeah.
And then we just got this the other day. Put down. I'll get that. There you go. And then this is 1 inch. And like if you look at it, like turn it sideways, like you wouldn't know that I didn't put it together.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And
Oh, the finished products are, God, man, they're beautiful.
so we're
And so
selling
what do you
those
make
at
with those?
anywhere from $75 to $100 a piece. And we bought the whole sheet. So that's,
It's
we end up buying the
13.
sheet for $200 to $300, and we'll end up making close to $1,000
over
just
actually.
off a single one.
Right on.
So the turnaround, but that's what I'm saying. Obviously, butcher block, if you've ever purchased it from an actual normal dealer, oh, it's insanely expensive. But you really can if you do it right. Yeah, you can do a lot of things. And if you got questions, like I'm telling you, I know I sent the link, but you can look through the link
How do you answer the
and see
picture?
send it. Hang on.
So
And we'll send a picture in the link, I guess. She's really wanting to send a
well,
picture.
we're talking about it, and like,
I don't
use
know.
your imagination. Like, this is what you can do with it.
I don't know how to send a picture. I can share it later. I'm sorry.
No, that's genius
another-
though with the butcher block.
One person asked if you guys have any videos of your process, like start to finish.
I wish I could say I did, but I don't have any videos, and I don't take pictures. My wife does pictures.
Yeah.
So on our YouTube, we've got Lauren going through how he creates something in Inkscape and puts it in easel. And he did on one of our CNC calls. So that's on our YouTube.
Yeah, I'll drop a
that we
link to our
split off.
YouTube in the chat.
But that's not the entire process of like cutting and everything else.
Oh, Benson dropped it. Thank you, Benson.
Yeah, so let's see, we got any more questions on there? Let's see.
What question? My
Just
questions.
3D ones.
Sorry, guys.
Let's see. I think we hit most of these.
I think we did too.
So,
Anything else you guys want to share? Like, do you want to show us anything you're particularly proud of, or
To
to put you on the spot?
yeah.
I mean, I'm proud of Proud of all of it.
All of
but,
those, yeah.
Maybe that baby? You're supposed to say.
Yeah, I made a tape reel. Just
That's
kidding.
awesome.
I love that.
I mean, both of y'all have some
But
really
no,
sweet
yeah.
signs behind you.
Yeah, we can see
Actually,
them.
Yeah.
I'll show you something cool. So for the tree, for the base of the stand,
Oh,
I played
neat.
with the V bit, and the V
Oh,
bit
nice.
thing.
Yes, that's cool.
Look at that. Are you kidding me?
That's
and
beautiful,
that was like
yeah.
one of my first tries. And so I did it second surface too. I cut it backwards. So
Wow.
you backside, which is kind of cool.
That is
So
cool.
Yeah, I like that you
so-
did the font backwards so you could hold it up and see through it.
I feel
Yeah.
like you could do something like that and put lights inside it and it could be the topper of your Christmas tree.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I just,
I love
I couldn't believe the M2 did that intricate with the V bit. Like
laser cut.
it's almost, yeah.
Mhm.
We're gonna make that into a soundbite.
Yeah, exactly.
Do it.
No, we've probably got time for maybe like 2 more questions. If anybody has any more, if they want to pop them in the chat.
I mean, I have a question. Let's see. Is a neon sign an affordable thing to want to buy? Or is it pretty much a market for people who are wanting to spend a lot?
Yeah, like businesses.
Yeah.
Like business customers only.
So it's a little mixed.
Yeah.
There's businesses who have an unlimited of money to spend on their signs, and those are kind of the clients we're looking to get. And then there's other people who, only want to spend a couple of $100s on one. And we've had all kinds of people call, just asking for pricing. And, we don't want to be too cheap. And so you tell them like, oh yeah, I got quotes for like, way less. So it's like, okay, well, you're paying for less quality is the thing. And, and I can guarantee these lights will last 50,000 hours. So that's about almost
That's a huge selling point for a business. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like 5 years on all the time. So.
But yeah, you do have to have some disposable income, 500,000, you know what I mean? Like
It's hard
so
to drop. Yeah.
over Christmas, we had someone reach out. A spouse wanted to make her husband a Heineken sign, and they're from Chicago. So they wanted it to be like the Chicago skyline, and then Chicago at the top, and then the Heineken sign below it. And that was about $100 we did. And she just she was one of our first non-referrals. She was like an actual customer that found us
Like
online.
from Google.
Yeah. And,
Oh, wow.
yeah. And so I was like, and the way like Lauren was saying, like, you got to get the money before you start production on it. And we usually will make them pay half, the deposit first, and then the other signs completed. And she paid the whole thing up front within 5 minutes of me sending her the invoice. So we were like,
that's
oh,
nice.
okay. So
We like that type of customer.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean, some people have the $1,000, no problem. Other people are going to be a little hesitant on it, but it's just,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear it. Someone just rang our doorbell.
My dog would
but
do the
it's just,
same thing.
yeah. Bella, welcome to our home.
Let's see. I had another question. What was it? I don't know.
Um,
Here's a couple from the chat. Have you found a clear sealer that is very flat and does not create any shine? Looking for one that photographs well. Do you guys have any?
So they make a matte poly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So that shouldn't have a shine. When it comes to your pictures, that's a huge thing, by the way.
So want to add to that, if you, my wife's giving me that look like, why did you interrupt me? Because we fought on this for a long time.
I promise we don't just fight all the time. Like
I do love her. I promise. I'm not just saying that on camera. No. So we fought for a long time because the original product and the customers never really noticed. But when you're a perfectionist, you notice every error you make and you pray to God that the customer doesn't ever find out you made the error. It's just, it bothers you in your head, right?
Mhm.
So I fully understand. But if you're gonna truly get perfect or close to perfection, you gotta spray. You can't apply by hand, you gotta spray. And there's a lot of options out there. And if you're just getting started, I'm gonna make a recommendation. If you haven't, like Rigid sells a small pancake sprayer or a small pancake compressor. And all you old heads out there are gonna shake your heads. You're like, a pancake compressor can't spray. But trust me on this. If you're in the sign business, you're probably not spraying a house. You're spraying maybe 5 or 6 square feet at most. The pancake compressor, go get you a spray gun from Harbor Freight for 40 or 50 bucks, and the compressor will be able to hit it. So you get in cheap, and then you learn your lessons from a small compressor, small sprayer, and you don't dump a ton of money. There's a ton of YouTube videos out there about mixing it up. I don't recommend an HVLP, high volume, low pressure sprayer. They are hit or miss on whether they're going to spray smoothly or not. And the overspray is like nuts. You're better off getting you a small compressor and getting a gun. I went through this pain myself. I've got one in the garage that just sits and just takes up space. Sorry, didn't mean to say that. Just sits and take up space. But yes, and then if you get into doing larger stuff, you can absolutely go buy an expansion tank for your pancake compressor. You can look up a YouTube videos on how to do it, and it works great. So our 6-foot signs, the compressor may go off once when we're spraying and sealing it, but even then the compressor can keep up. It just runs for a little bit. The cool thing about Rigid, it has a lifetime warranty. So you best know I'm using and abusing that thing, and when it dies, I'll go get another.
So when it comes to your pictures though, too, it may not be the poly that's the problem. It could also very much be your lighting. If you're going to be in, so if I take, goodness gracious, if I take photos at night, because I just finished the product and it's on my kitchen table and I've got yellow lighting in there, that photo's trash. Like, I'll take it if I need to hurry post it because they're going to be here at 8 o'clock in the morning.
That's right.
That it's trash. And like, no matter what filter you put on it, no matter how much you adjust the lighting, it's going to have a weird shine because of the yellow light. So I try to do most of mine to all of our door hangers. I do on our front door. That's turquoise, which is when we've moved forward, we're going to change our name to the turquoise door. So look for that. So, but it's outside always has the best lighting. Even if it's raining outside, that's almost even better because then those clouds are offering that beautiful shield to the direct sunlight. But when it comes inside, I bought a photo backdrop from Amazon for like $13. It's got the like antique wood. Again, obviously get something that fits more of your style that you make. And I literally lay it on the ground in the dining room right by the window. Like all those photos that are taken are on the ground on top of the thing. It's all about your lighting, because if you are selling on Facebook or you're selling on Etsy or you're selling in a digital market, that photo is how they look at your product. If it's a trash photo,
I'm glad you brought that up.
Even if it's just a simple, like I've got dish towels on there that work really well for market, like that's a dish towel. But if you put a little floral on it and you put it on that, that wood base, all of a sudden it's a professional photo. So if you are getting a shine, it could be your lighting. Try doing it like around.
I think you're right.
So all lit up, y'all literally sell the LED sign. So what do you do for your lighting and taking
that's a great question.
Good photograph of that?
Ours is a little tricky, especially when it comes to the lighting, because like you're saying, like, I mean, we have to have ours in total darkness to display all lit up. But then also a lot of the neon that we do is colored. So like even when it's off, you can still see it. So like adjusting the aperture, we use mostly just our iPhones for it.
Yeah.
We also have some Canon cameras we'll do. And I try to switch it up. Here at the house, it's like you got to find certain walls that are going to illuminate it correctly and not have it be dim or not have it be too bright. So really just trying to figure that out. There's also, I was trying to find on my phone, there's apps you can download that will take any image or some image within a photo and then put it on a white backer. So if you have, like for your instance, your sign is great for that. You can put it on a white backer. And so you're scrolling on your website or whatever, and it's all just the same background. Ours is a little bit more tricky to do that because it doesn't illuminate correctly, but there's a lot of free apps or apps that are like $3 a year to pay for to do that. So mostly it's just playing with the colors on your phone and the filter.
Yeah, the Lightroom, like I've got certain Lightroom presets that I have just for the door hangers because it makes the turquoise not so bright and it really accents the wood grain. But then if I were to use it on a regular photo, it'd be like, what is happening?
Right.
So lighting is huge when it comes to your product, just because that's how people see it. Like that's
draws them in.
When you're shopping for a house, if the photos look like trash, you're going to be the next house.
Yep.
So making sure you take the time and really, and especially with the V carve, like go at an angle, let them see that it's a 3D, let them see that it's into the wood. If you just take a flat photo from above, you're not going to see all that detail that you just spent on. So be a millennial and be all up in your product and in different angles and, you know, changing the light, because again, that's how you're going to sell your photo and really show what you did and what you made.
Have you noticed a difference between like oil versus acrylic paint, or is there a certain difference between them, and certain ones that you use
So-
for the lighting? Or for
Not so much for the
projects
lighting, but you got to think about your product, right? Oil is, if you're gonna do outdoors, you better use more of an oil base or do a lot more oil sealant. Acrylics just do not hold up to the weather as well, or at least in our experience. And even then, I mean, we've had a couple of cases. It's rare, but we've had a couple of cases where customers, we were basically told they're going to do it indoors, and then it goes outdoors and they're like, hey, we're having issues, and we fix it free of charge, right? Because, you know, misunderstandings or things like that, we'll take that ownership. But yeah, it really just depends. Acrylic, it behaves so much better for templates. It just does so much better. It doesn't, in my experience, it doesn't absorb into the wood the same way as an oil base. Like an oil base tends to like leach into the grain more.
And if you're taping anything, you could always do a quick spray with the spray gun that you're all going to go get now because Lauren suggested it. Do a quick spray with that over your wood, as long as you're not staining it. And then you could even, your tape tends to have a cleaner pull off if you do a quick spray with that versus just going on raw wood. But again, it's all going to be a preference. I really like matte black. So anything painted black is matte. That's just a preference. And then anything painted white is going to be like a satin, but that, again, that's just a preference. But honestly, when it comes to photos, it's amazing what lighting can do. It's lighting and your camera I mean, again, I use my phone. Can you feel?
Okay, I have another question, and then I think we're about to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for how to say no to people, or no to customers who want to do something, or no to something you don't have time for?
I need a 20-foot tall dinosaur. Yeah.
Now.
So
Tomorrow
when it
night.
comes to that, it's going to be obviously one, it could come to time, like realisticness of what they're going to do. And sometimes it's just like, you know, like, hey, like one is going to take me this amount of time. Like there's been several products, noodle boards, which are the stovetop covers. My husband absolutely hates doing them. I do not even post them, yet we still get orders. And I like tried, like, do you do noodle boards? Like, we can, but we specialize in this, this, and this. So sometimes it's just, if you want to take on the challenge, but, you know, maybe just say that, you know, you specialize in one particular thing, or, you know, your plate is full, or maybe you don't feel comfortable in it. You know, I've only done one or two. That's going to cost a lot of money. Sometimes we say that one, like, you know, material cost alone is going to be this much money. We've had somebody wanted something ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, like
To me, that's the easiest way to say no without saying no, because don't get me wrong, if you want,
price.
yeah,
You mean prices?
like you basically give them a price that you're willing to accept a yes, right? So if it's enough, then they're like, I'll figure out a way to make it happen because I'm going to make enough money. But it's a nice way of saying, you know, like, look, we'll do it for you, but you're going to pay for it. And then we have had the customers, they're like, nope, that's what we want. And so we go for it. And we, you know, because there's usually like it goes back to the question, like the 4x8. Even then, like, I know I can, if I push the machine and I can do what I have to do, because we know towards the edge of the machine that there's a little bit of variance. So I can cut it large and clean it up. And guess what? But even then, the biggest I've ever cut in one single cut was a little over 6 inches, or 6 foot by, I think it was like 2.5, 3 foot. It was one of the big names. And it was a combination of names. I just did it back to back. But yeah, for the most part, just basically outprice them. And I've never had a customer be like, oh, they'll always say something, but then we've had on occasions they come back for it. And I should mention one more thing. When it comes to the shows, if you get into shows, I was thinking about this earlier, if you get into shows, don't go into the show hoping to make the business at the show. So if you leave a show, don't be like, oh, I only made $300. Like, I really didn't make my time, right? The show isn't to make money. The show is to drive your business in that local area. So it's not uncommon for us to leave a show and only make $300-400, but then come home and have another $300 to $400 in orders come in over the next 2 days from that show. So if you don't have a business card or anything, at least get something on your name on it. Figure out something recognizable, build something, even if it's a simple logo that just doesn't, get something that they can glance at and say, okay, that's that person I spoke to.
QR codes, again, if you're going to get into the show world, are huge. So if you have a QR code, which is, no one knows what that is, it's just a box, a circle, and it takes you directly somewhere. So I have one for my Facebook and my Instagram. So even for my Cash App and Venmo, when they're paying me, instead of what's your name, how do you spell it, is there a hashtag, is there a underscore, they literally just scan the picture, it takes to their phone, and they can either immediately follow you on Facebook, they can immediately pay you.
That's a great idea.
If you don't have business cards, even on a business card, put your QR code, because how many of you pick up a business card and then it's
Lose it
then
immediately.
what? It's in the back of your wallet. So
Who would have predicted this comeback for
yeah,
the QR code?
disappears.
Yeah.
Out of that.
So have them scan it immediately. I mean, depending on if you're really trying to grow your following, have something there to raffle off if they follow you on Facebook. Well, if you follow me on Facebook, you get this. Because again, if you're posting everything that you're doing on Facebook or your Etsy or your Instagram, that's your advertisement. So it only works if everyone's following you. If you only have 3 followers, then what are you doing? So like, again, if you're at a show, or even if you have a customer, hey, make sure to follow me on, hey, how'd you find me? Awesome. You found me on Facebook Marketplace. Well, here's my Facebook page. Follow my page, like me on here. Cause again, hey, share it. Because again, if Facebook is how you're getting your stuff through, QR codes, business cards, at shows, at Walmart. I mean, I've been leaving Home Depot and someone's like, what are you buying all that for? Well, let me show you what I'm buying all this ridiculousness with.
Yeah.
And again, that's a customer. So always either have a QR code or a business card on hand.
And at the show, don't be
That's
afraid
great.
to take one item that you're like, hey, it's been sitting in my shop. I haven't sold it yet. It's just not selling. It makes a great item to give away, right? And tell them up front, like, hey, if you buy something today and you like it, I'll put your name and immediately go into the pot to receive the free item at the end of the show.
Yeah,
it's a great way to drive those numbers up.
Totally. Or sell it as a scratch and dent sale too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
a great one. Yeah. So all it up, how do y'all say no to somebody's request?
Similar to them, just price them out of it. If we're like, we don't have time, where there's 6 signs in front of us and like they want it in a week, like we'll make it happen, but it's going to cost you, $1,500, $2,000. And then, if they come back with it, we're like, oh, we have to make that.
Yeah.
But price them out and, or just tell them, like, a lot of people will call us and they'll be like, oh, do you do neon signage? Like, no, we don't do that. So just let them know, like, this is our specialty. We only do LED neon. Some people, might want woodworking. So I don't know, because we've posted some of that stuff and it's like, this is our niche, and this is what we stick to. So
I'll tell people I'm usually 2 to 3 weeks out. And I try to aim for 2 weeks to be early. Because it always looks good. But sometimes, I'll have like 5 orders back to back. And, I work during the day and then come home and then,
You have a newborn.
baby. Yeah. And then wait for this one to get off work so I can actually go in the garage and do some work. So I'm kind of transitioning into that point. Sorry, it's over. Oh, my power supply is overloading. I have it like 90% maxed out.
Oh, that's okay.
we're flipping it
That's all right.
switch.
It's just supposed to be like that. It's just,
That's cool.
But yeah, and that's another thing. You always want to run your power supplies 80% of their capacity. You'll get the most life out of them that way.
Good tip.
That is.
That's actually, I'm glad I kind of did that. But I wanted to put them all on one power supply I had right now. It's like 120 watts. But anyway, yeah.
Hey, real quick, Aaron, you said I was just talking to my wife. You said you offer 3 weeks?
2 to 3. Yeah.
We make different things.
Give me 7 days.
Yeah.
Like you get to the next weekend, you gotta make it.
And I'm sure I
can. Not names, like they're excited for their stuff. Different things.
We both work full
And,
time, so that's another thing too. Like, we're doing this in the evenings, and like if they were to order a sign online anywhere else, like it's gonna be
a lot. Yeah.
Especially
Like,
now.
you're not wrong. I'm just
Different
trying to
items,
explain to her,
different
like, look,
items.
You don't gotta do it.
So this is a
You're
great,
not an electrician. You
Right.
plug stuff into a computer and it cuts it for you.
Yeah, we're cutting it and adding LED neon to it, you know, like, I think, yeah, I mean, you guys are
I mean, I
painting.
get
You
it.
guys are selling different stuff.
Yeah.
I do get it.
Yeah,
and this is
but
a
it's
great
all-
segue though. Oh, no, go ahead.
no, I'm just saying it comes down to, if you give yourself 3 hours to do something, you'll get it done in 3 hours.
Mhm.
It all depends,
But he's one person,
But
and
I've-
there's like multiple signs in a row that we're trying to.
it seems like I do. And especially with signs, it's a very deadline driven business. So I'm always
Yeah.
against time. I'm trying to pull the rabbit out of the hat.
Yep.
Trying to
No,
get
that's
some
awesome, yeah.
for an event or something. Yeah.
And I'm sure
We
it's
talked about
worked out.
promotion, time management, and I mean, there's so many, as as evident with all of y'all, the different types of signs that you can make in that whole huge spectrum on the M2. So as kind of a closing, do you have any like final thoughts or advice for somebody that's looking to, use an M2 to create signs, or CNC in general and bits to make signs?
I mean, yeah.
That's a
Like,
big question.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some thinking involved. It's kind of not for novices. I mean, as long as you have a few design skills and, computer skills, how to read a tape measure, your thicknesses. I mean, anybody can learn it.
Just take some time.
It just takes a little time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome
So,
advice. Yeah,
One thing that
patience.
I would mention, so when I first got my Cricut, which is obviously like a very like small thing versus what you guys can do, obviously, but
That's still sweet.
I was almost overwhelmed because of all the things I could do, and I didn't know where to start, and I didn't
Yeah.
touch it for what? How long?
Totally.
Like a year and a half. Because it was endless. I could make tumblers. I
You
can
do
make
anything. Yeah.
So I almost was intimidated by it. So once we found what we liked doing, then we were ready to go. So my suggestion, and I obviously don't do any of the G code or any of that fun stuff. That's his thing. Find what you want to make first, but because it's almost endless. I mean, you guys make neon signs, we make crib names, like it's endless. So find kind of what you want to do and kind of perfect that, and then jumping. Because again, we were making circles, and then now we're making cutouts, and now we're doing cutting boards. But find what you enjoy, because again, it's endless. You can cut anything you want, and you don't even know where to start.
So just find something and just start. Yeah, find something you like and just hit the ground running. Right on.
Exactly.
The last thing I would add is, if you're patient and willing to learn, you can do anything. Like there's YouTube videos on everything.
That's
And
Yep.
true.
MakerMade with Casey have really upped the game with what is available information. The challenge that we've run into with friends that want to get into it, because I'm not trying to hoard the business. I'm all about sharing and learning something new from another maker, right? But the challenge we run into is we run into makers that just want to buy the file or just buy something and build it, right?
Right.
Do yourself a favor. Tell yourself not to do that, and learn to build your own files, learn to take your time. You will be forever grateful, because my wife tricked me and she went and purchased a bunch of SVGs to cut out.
They were
And then I
like
got
$1.
them. And I hated every one of them, right? And it's just one of those things, like they're just not clean, because there's companies out there that take images and take files and they
Yeah.
computer generate 100 of them and sell them for $1 a piece, and people will buy them. Take your
Mhm.
time and truly become a craftsman versus just a weekend hobbyist, and you will forever be happier with your end product. I use the old adage, like, aim for perfection and accept excellence. If you just take that time, man, it's so much better. And yeah, you learn where you can give some slack, but I make every file, I save every one of them, because I end up, it's weird, another customer will come along and be like, I loved that creation, and then I'll end up using that file again and again and again. So just take your time and be willing to learn, and you can do anything.
It's awesome.
I love that.
It's awesome advice from y'all. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this and coming and talking and sharing just the little bit into the inside of your world of sign making on the M2.
Yeah. Thank you both, or all four of you. And thank you for everyone who attended.
If
Yeah.
anybody has any questions, I'm willing to, you can always shoot us a message on Made with Love, that our Facebook page, or you can add us on Facebook or whatever. I really am open to try to help anybody. I don't know. I love helping other people, and that's why I try to come in a lot of those Thursday calls, just because you never know what you can learn and other makers around you. But yeah, just let us know if you got questions, especially about shows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
drop it in the owners group too. Share some information in there. Yeah, we'd love to keep chatting. And as Lauren just said, yeah, every Thursday at 11 a.m. Central, we're in there and we have just an open Q&A session where we just talk shop and hang out in there and help out any troubleshooting issues or project ideas and things like that. So another thing too, we'd love to do more of these. So if there are some more generalized areas, like cutting boards, for instance, is something that Lauren mentioned, and working on, there's furniture. I know so many people use
Craft shows is another
to
one.
do furniture, craft shows. There's so many different ones. So if there's some ideas that y'all would like to see more workshops in the future, like hit us up in the owners group. We'll be posting a post in there and sharing this video. It's going to be on YouTube and we'll put it out on our social media and everything too, so everybody can see it and get all the tags for their businesses as well. So you guys can go and check out all the awesome signs that they've made.
Thank you for having us. Nice meeting everyone.
nice
We're here to
meeting
help
y'all.
anyone too. If you need us, let us know. We can help you.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Yeah.
You too.
Yeah. You guys too.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for joining, and y'all take care and good luck making out there, everybody.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
See y'all later.
Bye.
Thanks a lot. Thanks everybody for joining.
Yeah,
See ya.
nice, guys.
Bye.